Hi, my name is Samantha, and this is the story of how my own family banned me from Thanksgiving right after I paid for everyone's dinner, and how I secretly gave them a surprise gift that they never saw coming. It's a story that still makes me feel so many emotions whenever I think about it, because it started with heartbreak but ended in a way that I'll never forget. Hey guys, before I begin, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell icon, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your support really means the world to me. So let me take you back to how it all happened. For as long as I can remember, Thanksgiving has been a complicated holiday for me. Most people I know look forward to it: big feasts, laughter, family time, traditions passed down through generations. But for me, Thanksgiving always came with this knot in my stomach. While everyone else seemed to have a place at the table, I always felt like I was just there. Like an afterthought. I tried to brush it off year after year, but being the youngest in my family, and the one who chose a different kind of career path, it always felt like no matter what I did, I just couldn't measure up. You see, my siblings are all very traditional. My older brother Mark is a lawyer, very polished and successful. My sister Jessica is a nurse, constantly praised for her hard work and steady career. And then there's me, Samantha, who decided to follow a less conventional path. I work in design and freelance projects, which sometimes means my income isn't as steady as theirs, but I love what I do. Still, to them, it always felt like my choices didn't count. They'd make little jokes at family gatherings about how Samantha probably can't afford this or Samantha must be living off scraps. They thought it was funny. I pretended to laugh along, but inside it always stung. This particular Thanksgiving, though, was supposed to be different. My parents decided we weren't going to cook a big dinner at home like we usually did. Instead, we were going out to a nice restaurant. They thought it would be easier, less stressful, and honestly, I was relieved. No mess, no days of preparation, just food and family. I told myself, maybe without the pressure of cooking, the mood would be lighter. Maybe for once, I'd be seen as part of the family instead of the odd one out. The evening started off okay. We all met at the restaurant, and the atmosphere was festive. The place was beautifully decorated with fall colors, pumpkins, warm lights, and the smell of roasted turkey and spices filled the air. I took a seat at the end of the table, as usual, while my siblings filled the middle with their loud conversations. My parents looked happy, my brother bragged about one of his recent cases, my sister shared stories from work, and I just listened, smiling politely when they turned toward me. For most of the meal, I stayed quiet. I laughed at their jokes, asked a few questions, and kept reminding myself to be positive. The food was amazing: turkey, mashed potatoes, stuffing, all the classics, and for a little while, I almost convinced myself that maybe this Thanksgiving wouldn't end in tears. But then came the moment that changed everything. The check arrived. It was placed in the middle of the table, and suddenly the lively conversation died down. Everyone's eyes seemed to avoid it. My dad reached for his water. My mom fussed with her napkin. My brother and sister started whispering to each other but very pointedly did not touch the bill. I sat there, watching the awkward silence grow. And then, before I could stop myself, I spoke up. "Don't worry about it, I'll take care of it," I said. The whole table turned toward me like I'd just announced something shocking. My mom raised her eyebrows. My sister laughed, almost choking on her drink. My brother smirked. "Really?" my sister Jessica said with this mocking tone. Samantha picking up the bill. Didn't see that coming. I felt my cheeks burn, but I didn't take it back. The waiter came over, and with my heart pounding, I handed him my card. He smiled and took it away. For a moment, I felt proud. Yes, it was a lot of money, but I wanted to do it. I wanted them to see me as capable, as someone who could contribute. Maybe this would finally earn me some respect. When the waiter brought the card back, I smiled and said, "Happy Thanksgiving, everyone." I hoped for at least a thank you, maybe some acknowledgement. Instead, my mom leaned over to my dad and whispered, not quietly enough, "I hope Samantha didn't just max out her card." My brother muttered something to his wife, and they both laughed. Then my sister said loud enough for everyone to hear, "Guess she spent her whole paycheck on one dinner. Hope she can still afford rent." The table erupted in chuckles. I forced a smile, but inside, I felt like my heart was sinking into the floor. I had just treated them all to a beautiful meal, and instead of gratitude, I was the punchline. On the way out, I trailed behind the group, trying not to let the tears in my eyes show. I told myself, "It's fine, Samantha, just shake it off." But that night, when I got home, the final blow came. My phone buzzed with a group text from Jessica. "Hey guys," it said. "After some discussion, we think it's best if Samantha skips Thanksgiving next year. It's just too much sometimes." My stomach dropped. I stared at the screen as the replies came in, one after the other. "Yeah, that's probably for the best," Mark replied. "Agreed," wrote my mom. Even my dad, the one I thought might defend me, added a thumbs-up emoji. Not a single person stood up for me. I sat there in silence, the glow of the screen making the tears on my face glisten. My name is Samantha, and in that moment, I felt smaller than I ever had before. I had just spent my money treating them all, hoping to be included, and their thank you was banning me from the holiday. For a while, I just cried. I cried for the years of feeling like the outsider, for always trying and never being enough, for thinking that this year could be different. I cried until there were no tears left, and then I just sat in the dark, numb. But somewhere in that numbness, something hardened. A spark lit up inside me. If they didn't want me at Thanksgiving, fine. But I wasn't going to disappear quietly. I wasn't going to let their cruelty define me. That night, I came up with an idea. A surprise. Not revenge, not anger, but something that would remind me, and them, that I had value. That I, Samantha, wasn't someone to laugh at or push aside. And so, I began to plan my secret gift. When I woke up the next morning, the sting of that group text was still fresh. I lay there staring at the ceiling, replaying every detail of the night before. Their laughter, their smirks, the way my mom leaned in to whisper about me as if I couldn't hear. And then that final blow, being officially excluded, like I was some burden they could just erase from the holiday. For years I had tried so hard to fit into this mold they had of what family should look like. I showed up when they wanted, bit my tongue when they made jokes at my expense, smiled through dinners where I was barely spoken to. I told myself, just keep trying, one day they'll see you. But last night shattered that illusion. It wasn't about me not trying hard enough, it was about them never wanting to see me at all. And that realization hurt, but it also gave me a strange sense of clarity. If they didn't want me at their table, I was done begging for a seat. But I wasn't going to let it end with me slinking away quietly either. No, I wanted to do something that would flip the script, not with anger, but with grace. Something that would make them pause. Something that would make them think. That's when the idea of the gift came back to me. It started as just a spark in my mind, but the more I thought about it, the more it grew into something real. Now, before I tell you what the gift was, let me explain something. Even though I freelance, I had been saving steadily for years. Every extra project, every late-night gig, every small windfall, I tucked it away. I didn't live extravagantly, and I kept my savings pretty quiet because, well, with my family, anything I did that wasn't their definition of traditional was mocked. They assumed I was always broke. They never asked how I managed, and I never corrected them. It was easier that way. But quietly, I had built up a cushion for myself. Enough that, for the first time in years, I could finally afford to do something bold. I decided I was going to rent out a space, not just any space, but one of the nicest banquet halls in town, and host a Thanksgiving dinner of my own. My Thanksgiving. I'd invite people who had shown me kindness over the years. Friends who treated me like family, coworkers who lifted me up, neighbors who always checked in. And I'd make it something beautiful. Music, food, warmth, the kind of celebration I had always wished for. And here's the twist, I would invite my family too. I knew what you're thinking, after everything they did, why would I even give them the option? The truth is, it wasn't about wanting their approval anymore. It was about proving to myself that I wasn't small, that I wasn't someone to be dismissed. I wanted them to see with their own eyes that I could create something meaningful. That I didn't need their validation to thrive. So, I got to work. Over the next few weeks, I poured my heart into planning. I visited the banquet hall and reserved it for Thanksgiving evening. I worked with a caterer to create a menu that included both traditional favorites and some creative dishes of my own. I found a local musician to play live acoustic music during dinner. I even designed the invitations myself, elegant cards with golden leaves printed on thick paper, sealed with a wax stamp. It was everything I had dreamed of. When the invitations were ready, I hand-delivered them to friends and neighbors first. Their reactions lit up my heart. "Oh my gosh, Samantha, this is incredible," one of my neighbors said. "Of course we'll be there." My coworker hugged me tight and promised to bring her famous pumpkin pie. Every person I invited said yes with genuine excitement. And then, with my hands shaking, I mailed out the invitations to my family. I didn't expect them to respond right away, and honestly, I wasn't even sure if they'd come. But sending those envelopes out felt like reclaiming something I had lost. It was me saying, I am not invisible. I have something to give. I belong here, whether you choose to see it or not. The days leading up to Thanksgiving were a blur of preparation. I spent hours making sure every detail was perfect. The banquet hall was decorated with soft string lights and autumn colors. The tables were set with crisp linens, golden chargers, and little handwritten place cards. I even set up a gratitude wall where guests could write down what they were thankful for on paper leaves and pin them up. But underneath the excitement, I won't lie, I was nervous. What if my family showed up and turned it into a spectacle? What if they laughed at me again? What if no one came at all, and I stood in that beautiful hall alone? The doubts crept in late at night, whispering that maybe I was foolish for even trying. Still, I pushed forward. Because at this point, it wasn't about them anymore. It was about me proving to myself that I could create joy, even after being pushed aside. Finally, the day arrived. Thanksgiving morning, I woke up early and went straight to the hall. The caterers were already buzzing around the kitchen, the decorations were in place, and the musician was tuning his guitar. I walked through the space slowly, taking it all in, my chest swelling with pride. This was mine. This was the family I chose to build. The first guests started arriving in the afternoon. Friends walked in with hugs and laughter, neighbors carried dishes to add to the table, and the room quickly filled with warmth. The gratitude wall started collecting colorful paper leaves with heartfelt messages. I'm thankful for kindness. I'm thankful for friendship. I'm thankful for Samantha. That last one made me blink back tears. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like an outsider. I felt like I was right where I belonged. And then, just as we were about to sit down for dinner, the doors opened again. My family walked in. My mom, my dad, Mark, Jessica, all of them. They looked around the hall, their expressions shifting from confusion to disbelief. My sister's jaw literally dropped as she took in the scene, the beautifully set tables, the laughter, the music, the people who weren't just putting up with me but celebrating with me. I walked over to greet them, my heart pounding but my smile steady. "Happy Thanksgiving," I said. "I'm glad you came." They stood there frozen for a moment, and in their eyes, I saw something I had never seen before, not pity, not condescension, but something closer to shock. Maybe even respect. And that was only the beginning. When my family walked in that evening, it was like time froze for a moment. Their eyes darted around the hall, drinking in the sight of the golden lights, the beautifully decorated tables, the laughter that filled the room. It was nothing like the cramped dining room at my parents' house, where conversation always felt forced and judgment hung in the air. Here, there was warmth. Here, there was belonging. I could tell they hadn't expected this. Maybe they thought, if I did anything at all, it would be some sad little dinner at my apartment, with barely enough food to feed a few people. They had no idea what I was capable of. My mom's eyes narrowed as she clutched her purse tighter. My dad's mouth pressed into a line, like he couldn't quite find words. My sister Jessica glanced at Mark, her fiancé, as if waiting for him to say something. Mark, for his part, just raised his eyebrows and gave a low whistle. "This is something," he muttered, glancing around. I smiled politely. "Dinner will be served shortly. You're welcome to sit anywhere." I meant it too. I had set aside places for them at the long table, because this wasn't about revenge or making them feel small. This was about showing them that I didn't need to be pitted or excluded. That I could stand on my own 2 feet. They walked further in, still glancing around in disbelief. Jessica's voice broke through first. "You did all this?" she asked, almost incredulously. "Yes," I replied simply. "With a little help from friends." Her eyes flickered toward the table where a group of my coworkers were laughing together, one of them raising a glass in my direction. She looked back at me, but for once, she didn't have a snide comment ready. Dinner began, and everyone gathered at the long tables. The food was laid out beautifully: roasted turkey with golden skin, creamy mashed potatoes, bowls of vibrant vegetables, stuffing, cranberry sauce, pumpkin pies lined up at the dessert table. The smell alone made the room feel like a holiday dream. As people filled their plates, conversation flowed freely. Friends talked about their favorite memories. Neighbors shared stories of kindness in the community. There was a lightness, a joy, that I had never felt at my family's dinners. And here's the thing, my family couldn't help but notice. They sat stiffly at first, unsure how to blend in with this crowd that was so genuinely warm. My dad stuck to short answers when people asked him polite questions. My mom sat with her fork poised like she was ready to criticize the food but couldn't find anything wrong with it. Jessica, meanwhile, kept glancing around, her expression shifting between annoyance and discomfort. It wasn't until Mark leaned back in his chair, grinning, that the first crack showed. "I have to admit, Samantha," he said loudly enough for the whole table to hear, "this is one of the nicest Thanksgivings I've ever been to." The room quieted for a moment, and all eyes turned toward me. My cheeks warmed, but I lifted my chin and smiled. "Thank you," I said. I just wanted to create something where everyone could feel welcome. I saw the flicker in Jessica's eyes then, the sharp flash of irritation. Mark's compliment wasn't just praise for me, it was a comparison she couldn't ignore. Because she had always been the one to host, the one to plan, the one to show off. For her, this wasn't just a dinner. It was competition. But for me, it wasn't about competing at all. As dinner went on, something unexpected happened. My friends and neighbors started drawing my family into the conversations. A neighbor asked my dad about his work. One of my coworkers complimented my mom's scarf. Someone else joked with Jessica about how she must have inherited the same smile as me. Slowly, I watched their stiff postures loosen. My dad even chuckled at one of the stories being shared. And I realized something, this was what family should feel like. Not exclusion, not judgment, not hierarchy. Just people connecting, sharing, laughing together. But the real moment came when it was time for the gratitude wall. After dessert, I invited everyone to write something they were thankful for on a paper leaf and pin it to the wall. People lined up eagerly, scribbling notes like thankful for good friends or thankful for health this year. When it was my turn, I wrote simply, thankful for second chances. One by one, the leaves filled the wall until it looked like a blooming autumn tree. People gathered to read them, laughing, smiling, pointing out sweet messages. And then, to my surprise, I saw Jessica step up to the table. She hesitated for a long time, pen hovering over the paper leaf. Her face was tight, unreadable, but eventually, she wrote something down and pinned it quietly on the wall. She walked away quickly before I could catch what it said. I was dying to look, of course. But I didn't rush. I let the night go on, focusing instead on the joy around me. People were full, happy, glowing with gratitude. By the end of the evening, I felt something I hadn't felt in years, peace. Not because my family had suddenly changed, but because I had. I had stopped begging for a place at their table and built one of my own. And in doing so, I had created a space where even they could sit without control, without judgment. Just as people. When the night ended and guests began to leave, I stood near the door, hugging each one and thanking them for coming. My friends promised we'd do it again next year. Neighbors squeezed my hands warmly. And then my family came up. My dad gave a small nod, avoiding eye contact but murmuring, "Good job tonight." My mom pursed her lips, then finally said, "It was nice." That was probably the closest she had ever come to giving me a compliment. Jessica didn't say a word at first. She just looked at me, her face unreadable. Finally, she muttered, "You surprised me." Then she walked out with Mark, who gave me a smile and a little wave. When the last guest left, I walked over to the gratitude wall and scanned the notes. And there it was, Jessica's leaf. In neat handwriting, she had written, "Thankful for being reminded not to underestimate people." I stood there staring at it, my chest tight. For Jessica, that was as close to an admission as I'd ever get. She would never say it outright, but in that small, scribbled note, I saw a shift. A tiny one, but real. And I realized something then. Maybe my family would never change completely. Maybe they'd always see me through a lens of who they thought I should be. But I didn't need their validation anymore. Because I had proven, to them and to myself, that I was more than the box they tried to put me in. That night, as I turned off the lights in the hall and stood alone in the quiet, I whispered to myself, "I belong." And for the first time in a long time, I truly believed it. But little did I know, that single Thanksgiving would set off a chain of events I never saw coming. The morning after that Thanksgiving, I woke up with a strange mix of emotions. On one hand, I felt lighter than I had in years. I had proven to myself that I could stand tall, create something beautiful, and bring people together. On the other hand, I couldn't stop thinking about that leaf on the gratitude wall, Jessica's message about not underestimating people. It was haunting me. Was it a backhanded jab, or was it the closest thing to an apology I'd ever get from her? I couldn't tell. Over the next few days, life settled back into routine. I went to work, spent time with my friends, and tried not to dwell on my family. But it wasn't easy. I had grown up with them defining my worth, their approval hanging over every decision I made. Breaking free from that wasn't something that happened overnight. It was the following weekend when the first ripple from Thanksgiving reached me. My phone buzzed with a message from Mark, Jessica's fiancé. "Hey Samantha, I just wanted to say again that dinner was amazing. Honestly, I've never seen Jessica so quiet. You really impressed everyone." I stared at the message for a long time, unsure how to respond. Mark had always been polite to me, but this felt different. Complimentary. Almost admiring. "Thank you," I typed back finally. "It meant a lot to me that you both came." He replied almost instantly. "I know things are complicated with your family. But for what it's worth, I think you handled it with grace. Don't let them make you feel small." I set my phone down slowly, my heart pounding. Mark wasn't wrong, things were complicated. But hearing that from him, of all people, stirred something in me. It wasn't romantic, it was validation. Someone close to Jessica had seen me, really seen me, in a way my family never had. Of course, I didn't know then how dangerous that validation would become. A few days later, my mom called me. I almost didn't pick up, but curiosity won. "Samantha," she said, her tone clipped. "Your Thanksgiving was fine. But I think you've made your point. There's no need to do something like that again." I blinked, stunned. "What do you mean?" "You don't need to prove anything," she said quickly. "It was nice, yes, but people might start to talk if you keep trying to outshine your sister. We don't want that kind of tension in the family." My chest tightened. Outshine my sister? That wasn't what I was doing at all. But of course, in my mom's eyes, everything was a competition between me and Jessica. I wasn't trying to outshine anyone, I said carefully. I just wanted to celebrate with people who cared. There was silence on the other end before she finally muttered, "Well, just keep things simple next time." Then she hung up. I sat there staring at my phone, anger simmering in my chest. Simple. That was her word for small, for unimportant, for less than. She couldn't stand the idea of me stepping out of the role she had boxed me into. But what she didn't realize was that I wasn't going back. The next ripple came from Jessica herself. She showed up at my apartment one evening, unannounced. When I opened the door, she stood there with her arms crossed, her expression unreadable. "Can we talk?" she asked. I hesitated before nodding and letting her in. She walked around my small living room, glancing at the neatly arranged shelves, the framed photos of me with friends, the small but cozy touches I had built into my space. Finally, she turned to me. "You surprised me," she said flatly. "I know," I replied, keeping my tone neutral. "That dinner. I didn't think you had it in you." Her voice was sharp, but there was something else underneath it. Unease. Maybe even fear. "Why?" I asked quietly. She looked at me for a long moment before answering. "Because you've always been, well, you know. The quiet one. The one who follows. The one who doesn't stand out." Her words stung, even though they weren't new. That was how she had always seen me, as lesser, as background. "I'm not that person anymore," I said firmly. Her jaw tightened. "Yeah. I can see that." She paused, then added, "Just don't get carried away, okay? You don't want to start something you can't handle." With that, she left, leaving me standing in my living room with my heart racing. What did she mean by that? Was it a warning? A threat? Or just her way of trying to reassert control? I didn't know. But what I did know was that something had shifted. Jessica wasn't just irritated anymore. She was unsettled. And people like Jessica didn't handle feeling unsettled very well. The following week, I went out for coffee with one of my coworkers, and as we sat chatting near the window, I noticed Jessica outside. She was walking with a friend, but her eyes landed on me through the glass. For a split second, her face froze, shock, annoyance, something darker, before she quickly looked away and kept walking. It was subtle, but I recognized it for what it was. She was watching me now, paying attention in a way she never had before. And part of me was scared, because I knew Jessica well enough to understand one thing: she didn't like being challenged. But another part of me, a stronger part, felt something else. Power. For once in my life, I wasn't the one shrinking. I wasn't the one being dismissed. I had taken control of my story, and now she was the one reacting to me. The irony was, I hadn't set out to compete with her. I hadn't wanted any of this tension. All I'd wanted was a seat at the table, literal and metaphorical. But by creating my own, I had accidentally shifted the balance. And I had no idea just how much that shift was going to change things in the months to come. Because Jessica wasn't about to let me take the spotlight so easily. And as much as I wanted to believe the Thanksgiving dinner had ended the years of exclusion, I was beginning to realize it had only been the beginning of a much bigger storm. After that strange visit from Jessica and the awkward run-in when she saw me at the cafe, I started noticing a pattern. Wherever I went, it felt like she was somehow there too. Grocery store, the gym, even once at the farmer's market. It was almost uncanny, like she was keeping tabs on me without admitting it. I tried to brush it off as coincidence, but the pit in my stomach told me otherwise. It wasn't until 2 weeks later that the first real confrontation happened. I was at my apartment one Friday evening, cooking myself a simple dinner and enjoying some music, when my phone rang. It was Mark. "Hey Samantha," his voice sounded hesitant. Jessica's really upset tonight. I probably shouldn't be telling you this, but she's been going on and on since Thanksgiving. She thinks you're trying to outdo her." I nearly dropped the spoon in my hand. Outdo her? With what? A dinner? I know, Mark sighed. I told her it wasn't like that, but she's convinced you're trying to embarrass her. She feels like you stole the attention. For a moment, I was speechless. Then anger welled up inside me. Mark, I didn't steal anything. I just did my own thing. I'm allowed to have a life outside of her shadow. I agree, he said quickly. I just thought you should know what she's saying. She might try to make things harder for you. That last part made my stomach twist. Harder? What exactly did that mean? I thanked him for telling me and hung up, but sleep didn't come easily that night. My mind kept circling back to one thought. Jessica wasn't just upset. She was threatened. And when Jessica felt threatened, she lashed out. The following Sunday, my fears were confirmed. I went to my parents' house for what I thought was a quiet visit. But the moment I walked in, I felt the tension. My mom barely greeted me before muttering something about keeping things simple, like we talked about. My dad looked uncomfortable, fiddling with the TV remote as if it were the most fascinating object in the world. And then Jessica walked in. She didn't say hello. Instead, she tossed her coat onto the couch and crossed her arms. So, Samantha, she said in that sharp tone of hers, how long were you planning to keep up this little performance? I blinked at her. Performance? I don't know what you're talking about. She smirked, but it didn't reach her eyes. Oh, please. That dinner. The wall of gratitude. The fancy decorations. You think you can just suddenly play hostess and act like you're the center of attention? It's pathetic.